Introduction: The Noble Qualities of the Buddha. Have you ever wondered what true greatness looks like? Not the kind that's loud or flashy, not tied to fame or wealth, but the kind that moves in silence, heals without a word, and transforms simply by presence. In a world chasing more power, more success, more validation, there lived a man who quietly let go of it all. He was born a prince, surrounded by luxury and status. But he chose to leave it behind, not out of rebellion, but out of deep compassion. His name was Siddhartha Gautama. And he became the Buddha, not because he followed tradition, but because he woke up. And what does it mean to be awakened? It means seeing life clearly, not just through opinions or beliefs, but through direct, living experience. It means understanding the roots of suffering and knowing the way out. But what made the Buddha truly remarkable wasn't just his wisdom, it was who he became through that wisdom. His presence carried something we all long for: stillness without detachment, love without possession, clarity without judgment. In this series, we are not going to worship an image on an altar. We are going to walk beside a human being who faced fear, confusion, loss, just like you and me, and discovered a freedom that didn't come from escaping the world, but from seeing it differently. We'll explore 10 noble qualities of the Buddha, not as abstract ideals, but as living energies that still speak to us today. Qualities like boundless compassion, unshakable peace, fearless honesty, and a quiet courage that kept going even when the path grew dark. And maybe, just maybe, as we reflect on these qualities, we'll start to feel something stir in our own hearts. Not to become like the Buddha on the outside, but to remember the Buddha nature already waiting within us. So take a breath. Slow down. Let's begin not with answers, but with a gentle question. What kind of human being do you long to become? Because the life of the Buddha isn't just a story from the past. It's a mirror, quietly inviting us to wake up, too. Part 1. Loving kindness, unconditional compassion. Have you ever felt exhausted trying to please others, only to be met with indifference, or even betrayal? In a world where love often comes with conditions: be attractive, be successful, give more than you receive. The loving kindness of the Buddha is like cool water in a scorching desert. He didn't love to be loved back. He loved because his heart no longer saw a line between self and other. In Buddhist teaching, loving kindness, or metta, isn't pity, nor is it the kind of attachment that demands something in return. It's a quiet, steady strength, like the sun that shines on everyone without asking who's worthy. The Buddha once said, "Love all beings as a mother loves her only child." It's not just a poetic ideal, it's a way of life. A way to keep our hearts open, even when they've been bruised. I remember attending a silent retreat in Northern California. The teacher asked us, if you saw someone who hurt you deeply drowning in sorrow, would you walk away or reach out? That question echoed inside me for days. I came to realize, forgiveness and compassion aren't gifts we give others. They're ways we heal ourselves. Unconditional compassion doesn't mean allowing others to keep hurting us. It means having the courage to let go of hatred, so our hearts can finally be free. Just like the Buddha, who embraced all of humanity not through power, but through the silent power of compassion. 2. Boundless wisdom, timeless clarity. Have you ever sat in silence and asked yourself, is everything I know really true? We grow up surrounded by layers of information, beliefs, opinions, taught what's right, what's wrong, what to chase, what to avoid. But the wisdom of the Buddha isn't about knowing more or winning arguments. It's about seeing clearly, beyond words, beyond labels, and even beyond the self we think we are. The Buddha's wisdom wasn't intellectual superiority. It wasn't knowledge for debate. It was a deep, silent insight into the root of suffering, and the path beyond it. He didn't learn to impress, but to awaken. His wisdom helped people stop blaming the world and start observing their own mind. Someone once asked me, how do you know if someone is truly wise? I think it's not the one with the most answers, but the one who asks the right questions. The one who listens to what isn't being said. Like the Buddha, who didn't need to argue with the world, because he saw through it. He saw that everything is impermanent, that every pain has a path of liberation. I believe true wisdom doesn't live in books. It lives in the moments we dare to face the truth, especially when that truth makes us uncomfortable. It's when we stop pretending, stop blaming, and release what no longer serves us. And maybe, like the Buddha, we don't have to be the smartest person in the room. We just need to be the clearest one. 4. Equanimity, letting go like wind through the forest. Have you ever felt exhausted from holding on to too much? A harsh word. A broken relationship. A dream that no longer fits. We hold on tightly, thinking that if we let go, we'll lose something vital. But the truth is, the tighter we grip, the heavier we become. The more we cling, the more we suffer. After his enlightenment, the Buddha let go of everything the world clings to: fame, power, the need to argue right and wrong. Not because they didn't matter, but because he saw their true nature. Everything arises and passes away. Everything is like clouds drifting over mountaintops, like a breeze moving through the forest. Equanimity doesn't mean giving up because we are tired. It means letting go with understanding. It's the strength to walk away without bitterness, to stop needing to win, to prove, to possess. It's light as wind, but powerful enough to cleanse the soul. I once met an elderly man at an outdoor meditation in Oregon. He told me he'd spent his whole life resenting the father who left him. But one foggy morning, sitting in silence, he looked up and thought, "I've lived all these years trapped in the thoughts of a wounded child." And in that moment, he let go. Not to forget, but to stop clinging. Just like the Buddha. He didn't let go because he didn't care, but because he saw that true freedom begins the moment we stop holding on. And equanimity is one of the deepest forms of compassion we can offer to ourselves. 5. Radical honesty, not even a dust-sized lie. Have you ever said something untrue just to keep the peace? Maybe a small white lie. A half-truth to protect your image. Over time, we grow used to these masks until we forget what our true face even looks like. But the Buddha was different. He didn't speak to win arguments. He didn't twist words to sound clever. Every word he spoke came from clarity and compassion. His truth was quiet, but it illuminated. He didn't see honesty as a choice, it was simply the way he lived. He spoke only what was useful. Only when it mattered. He didn't speak to please people, but to help them awaken, to guide them out of confusion. Most importantly, he was deeply honest with himself, even when the truth wasn't convenient. I once heard a meditation teacher say, "Each time you're not true to yourself, something inside you withers." That line stuck with me. Dishonesty doesn't just mislead others, it erodes our own sense of self. Honesty isn't about being blunt or harsh. It's about saying what matters without disguise. Knowing when to speak and when silence speaks louder. And above all, staying loyal to your own heart, even in the tiniest ways. Just like the Buddha, who didn't need to convince anyone. His honesty itself was the truth. 6. Humility, even at the highest peak. Have you ever met someone truly brilliant, but they never made you feel small? Their humility draws you in. You trust them, not because they shout, but because their quiet presence speaks volumes. Real power doesn't need to be loud. It simply is. The Buddha reached the highest realization imaginable, and yet, he never claimed to be a god. He didn't demand worship. He didn't force belief. He never said, "I am the one." Instead, he said, "I am only a guide. The path is yours to walk." And in that humility lies a profound kind of wisdom. Because those who truly see the nature of the universe know, there's nothing to own. Not praise, not titles, not even people's belief. When the ego fades, greatness begins. I once saw a professor, world-renowned, pause in the middle of a lecture and apologize to a student for a small mistake. He bowed his head with sincerity. And in that moment, he wasn't smaller, he was towering. Humility isn't about putting yourself down. It's about not needing to put yourself above. It's knowing who you are, and not needing anyone to validate it. Just like the Buddha, who never sought devotion. He simply offered the light, and stepped aside. Gently, fully, like the earth, low, but strong enough to carry everything. 7. Unshakable effort, the Buddha's relentless path to awakening. There's something deeply powerful about a person who just doesn't give up. Not because they are the strongest. Not because they have everything figured out. But because, no matter how hard it gets, they keep walking. One step. Then another. And another. That's what the Buddha embodied under the Bodhi tree. He wasn't born enlightened. He wasn't handed some divine shortcut. For 49 days, he sat in complete stillness under a tree, facing every temptation of the mind, every shadow of fear, every whisper of doubt. No distractions. No escape. Just him and truth. Can you imagine that kind of commitment? Have you ever tried sitting with your thoughts for even 10 minutes? Most of us reach for our phones within seconds, itching for a way out. But the Buddha stayed. And that unwavering determination, what we call right effort, or diligence, became the fire that lit his awakening. That's the kind of spiritual effort we often overlook. We want clarity, but without facing the storm. We want peace, but without walking through the noise. But every breakthrough, whether spiritual or personal, requires this one thing: not giving up. You see, diligence isn't about being perfect. It's not about pushing ourselves until we collapse. It's about choosing, again and again, to turn toward the truth. To keep practicing, even when it's inconvenient. To keep showing up, even when it hurts. Buddhist monks sometimes say, even one mindful breath is a victory. That's what it looks like, small, invisible victories that build something unshakable inside us. So let me ask you, what would happen if you just stayed? Not in a place that hurts you, but in a space that's calling for your presence, your truth. What if you didn't run this time? Maybe you're closer to awakening than you think. Not because of how much you know, but because of how deeply you stay. 8. The Buddha's radical vision of equality. Have you ever felt like you were judged before you even spoke? Like someone looked at your clothes, your job, your skin, and already decided who you were? We live in a world that's constantly ranking people by wealth, status, race, education. Sometimes we are the ones being judged. Sometimes, if we are honest, we are the ones doing the judging. But over 2,500 years ago, a man named Siddhartha Gautama, who later became the Buddha, saw through this illusion. He saw something deeper than social labels or appearances. To him, a prince and a beggar were made of the same breath. Their blood ran the same red. Their tears fell with the same salt. In a time when society was sharply divided into castes and classes, when people were told they were superior or inferior by birth, the Buddha did something revolutionary. He created a spiritual community, a sangha, where these divisions simply did not matter. You see, the Buddha didn't care about what family you were born into. He didn't ask if you were rich, educated, or influential. The only thing that mattered to him was, are you willing to walk the path? Are you committed to understanding your mind, calming your heart, and freeing yourself from suffering? One of his earliest disciples was a former killer. Another was a barber. Others were kings, slaves, women once considered untouchable by society. In the eyes of the Buddha, they were all equally capable of awakening. He said it clearly, just as the rivers, when they reach the ocean, all become one taste, the taste of salt, so too, in my path, all people become one in practice, in truth. Let that sink in. Long before we had civil rights movements or human rights declarations, the Buddha was already living a radical truth, that beneath our stories and roles, we are all made of the same essence. It's a reminder that true spirituality doesn't divide, it unites. It doesn't inflate the ego, it dissolves it. So maybe the real question today isn't who you are by title or background, but how deeply you are willing to see the same light in everyone you meet. Can you pause, just for a moment, the next time you find yourself judging someone, and ask, what if they are not so different from me? Because in the eyes of awakening, there is no higher or lower. There is only the shared journey across suffering, across healing, toward freedom. Together. How far would you go for the truth? Would you sit in silence for days? Weeks? Would you face your deepest fears without running, without numbing, without turning away? This is not a hypothetical. This is what Siddhartha Gautama, the man who became the Buddha, actually did. He sat beneath a Bodhi tree for 49 days, unmoving, determined not to rise until he touched the truth with his own heart. That kind of effort is something the Buddha called a right effort, but it's more than just trying hard. It's a quiet, unwavering fire inside. Not frantic. Not forced. But consistent, steady, and purposeful. In Buddhist teachings, this quality is called virya, often translated as diligence or energy. But really, it's deeper than that. It's the strength to keep going, even when your mind says stop. Even when you're tired, discouraged, or uncertain. Think of it like this: a river doesn't rush all the time, but it never forgets where it's going. Even when the flow slows, it keeps moving. That's what true effort looks like. The Buddha didn't become awakened by chance. He tried, failed, learned, adjusted. He practiced under many teachers. He nearly died from extreme fasting. But still, he didn't give up. Because he wasn't chasing enlightenment for himself alone. He was seeking a way out of suffering for all of us. And he knew that path had to be walked, one mindful step at a time. What does this mean for you and me? It means that spiritual growth isn't a single moment of clarity, it's a practice of showing up again and again. Meditating even when the mind is restless. Breathing even when the world is loud. Choosing compassion even when it would be easier to blame. The Buddha taught that with steady effort, anyone can transform. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to keep walking. So today, ask yourself, where in your life are you ready to stop quitting? What would happen if you brought just 1% more presence, more patience, more persistence? Because the truth is, freedom isn't at the finish line. It's hidden in each moment you choose not to give up. 9. The unshakable silence of the Buddha, beyond praise and blame. Have you ever noticed how easily we are pulled by praise, or crushed by criticism? Someone compliments us, and suddenly we feel seen, valuable, like we are finally doing something right. But then, one harsh comment, one misunderstanding, and that confidence crumbles like sand. It's exhausting, isn't it? Living at the mercy of other people's opinions. But what if I told you that peace doesn't come from being praised, or even from avoiding blame, but from being unmoved by both? That's what the Buddha discovered. After his awakening, people began calling him a sage, a teacher, even a god. But the Buddha didn't let those words inflate him. He didn't smile wider because someone bowed deeper. And when others mocked him, accused him falsely, or tried to stir anger, he didn't shrink either. He remained steady, like a mountain in the wind. Still, silent, unshaken. This wasn't cold detachment. It was clarity. The Buddha saw the truth that most of us miss. Praise and blame are both just ripples on the surface. They don't define who we are. They rise and fall like everything else. Thoughts, emotions, weather, waves. When you really see that, when you see that nothing anyone says can add or subtract from your worth, that's when you become free. But this doesn't mean we ignore feedback or never feel hurt. It means we learn to pause before reacting. To ask, is this truth, or just projection? Is this about me, or their own pain speaking? And in that pause, something opens. A space. A silence that isn't empty, but full of presence. That silence is power. Not the power to control others, but the power to not be controlled by them. In a world obsessed with image and approval, choosing stillness can feel radical. But maybe that's exactly what we need. So the next time someone praises you, thank them, but don't cling. And when someone criticizes you, listen, but don't sink. Let it all move through you, like wind through branches. And return, again and again, to that quiet place within you, where nothing needs to be proved, and nothing can be taken away. Because in that place, you're not just reacting. You're remembering who you truly are. 10. Compassion, the wisdom of seeing and loving fully. What does it really mean to be compassionate? We often think of compassion as a kind gesture, a soft heart, or the ability to feel someone else's pain. But in the teachings of the Buddha, compassion wasn't just about emotions, it was a profound form of wisdom. To the Buddha, true compassion came from understanding. He didn't just feel sorry for others, he saw clearly why they suffered. He saw the fear behind anger, the loneliness beneath pride, the confusion behind cruelty. And from that deep seeing, love naturally arose. Not a romantic love, not a weak pity, but a strong, unwavering care that says, I see your pain. I see your potential. I will not turn away. Even those who tried to harm him were not met with hatred. The Buddha once said, hatred never ends by hatred. It ends by love. It's easy to be kind to those who are kind to us, but real compassion shows itself when we are hurt, misunderstood, or rejected, and still choose to respond with clarity and care. Ask yourself, who do I find hard to love? Who triggers my judgment, my fear, my impatience? That is exactly where your compassion is meant to grow. This isn't about being a saint or ignoring your own boundaries. It's about shifting from reacting to understanding. When you truly listen to someone, not just to their words, but to what their heart is trying to say, you begin to love them differently. You begin to see the wounded child behind the adult mask, the story behind the silence. And in that moment, something softens, not just in them, but in you. The Buddha's compassion wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was steady, clear, and all-encompassing. He taught that when we see others with understanding, love is not something we give, it's something that awakens. So maybe compassion isn't something you have to learn. Maybe it's something you simply have to uncover. Because beneath all the layers of fear, judgment, and self-protection, your true nature is already loving.